Before Auschwitz became synonymous with industrial death, before the names of Treblinka, Dachau, and Bergen-Belsen reached the ears of the world, there was Stutthof. Hidden deep in the forests near the Baltic Sea, Stutthof was the first Nazi concentration camp established outside Germany's pre-war borders and the last to be liberated. Its origins were deceptively modest. Conceived in 1939 as a civilian internment camp for Polish intellectuals and political opponents in the newly annexed Danzig corridor. Yet its purpose quickly darkened. By 1941, Stutthof was redesignated a special camp, then a full-fledged concentration camp, evolving into a brutal instrument of the final solution. Its strategic location near the Baltic Sea made it a crucial hub for the deportation of Jews from the Baltic states, East Prussia, and later, Hungary. The camp became a microcosm of Nazi terror, a place where systematic dehumanization was perfected. By the war's final years, over 110,000 souls had passed through its gates. More than 65,000 never came out. Their lives were stolen not just by bullets and gas, but by starvation, typhus, frostbite, and the relentless soul-crushing cruelty inflicted by their captors. Stutthof was a place of slow annihilation, where human dignity was systematically stripped away, leaving only despair. Stutthof's darkness didn't just come from barbed wire and watchtowers. It came from those entrusted to keep order, both men and women. Among them were female guards, known as Aufseherinnen, many still in their 20s, trained to oversee the camp's swelling population of Jewish women deported from ghettos and other camps. These women were not conscripted. They volunteered, drawn by the promise of better pay, status, and a perceived escape from mundane lives. Their training was brief, often just a few weeks, focusing on discipline and absolute obedience. They were taught to be ruthless, to view prisoners as subhuman, and to enforce the camp's brutal regulations without question. This indoctrination, coupled with the immense power they wielded, transformed many into figures of chilling sadism. They became symbols of terror, their names whispered with dread among the prisoners. Some of these women became infamous, their names etched into the annals of Holocaust history. Jenny Wanda Barkman, Elizabeth Becker, and Irma Grace. But one name echoed with particular fear in the barracks of Stutthof, Ava Paradies. Her presence, like a shadow, cast a pall over the lives of countless women, a testament to the capacity for cruelty that could emerge from seemingly ordinary individuals. She was born on December 17, 1920, in a town called Lemborg, then part of the Weimar Republic. Not much is known about her childhood. No great traumas, no overt signs of the monstrous path she would eventually tread. She was, by all accounts, an ordinary young woman from a modest background, one of many who found themselves swept up in the machinery of the Third Reich. The propaganda of the era, emphasizing duty, order, and racial purity, undoubtedly shaped her worldview. In August 1944, at the height of the war, she arrived at Stutthof as a trainee, young, blonde, and seemingly ordinary. But the uniform changed her, or perhaps it merely revealed what lay dormant within. The power it conferred, the absolute authority over life and death, seemed to awaken a dormant brutality. She quickly ascended the ranks, becoming a Blockführerin, responsible for entire barracks of female prisoners. Eyewitnesses later described her as cold, brutal, without remorse. She relished discipline, and her methods were savage, often exceeding the already horrific camp regulations. One survivor recalled a bitter winter morning when Paradies ordered female prisoners to strip naked in the snow before dousing them with buckets of freezing water. When they cried out or moved, she beat them mercilessly with a whip or a stick. Her cruelty was not merely punitive, it was gratuitous, designed to inflict maximum suffering and break the human spirit. Paradies was known for her arbitrary violence, her sudden outbursts of rage, and her particular enjoyment of tormenting the most vulnerable. She would deny food to starving prisoners, force them to perform impossible tasks, and subject them to prolonged beatings for minor infractions. Her actions were not born of ideological fervor, but rather a chilling blend of sadism, a desire for control, and a profound lack of empathy. Ava wasn't just a cog in the machine. She was its sharpened blade, a willing instrument of its destructive will. By 1945, the Reich was crumbling. Soviet forces were closing in from the east, their relentless advance signaling the end of Nazi dominion. As the Red Army approached, the Nazis began evacuating camps, initiating what would become known as death marches, under the guise of relocation. These forced marches, often conducted in the dead of winter, were designed to eliminate evidence and prevent prisoners from falling into Allied hands. Paradies was among those overseeing one such transport of female prisoners from Stutthof to the Lauenburg camp, a sub-camp further west. The conditions were horrific. Thousands of emaciated prisoners, many suffering from typhus and dysentery, were forced to march for days without food, water, or adequate clothing. Those who faltered were shot. It was a final, desperate act of extermination, a testament to the Nazis' unwavering commitment to their genocidal agenda even in defeat. But somewhere on the icy roads of northern Poland, amidst the chaos of a dying empire, Ava Paradies vanished. She melted into the throngs of refugees, displaced persons, and fleeing soldiers, hoping to disappear into the anonymity of post-war Europe. She thought she had escaped the consequences of her actions, that the sheer scale of the war's devastation would provide her with a permanent hiding place. She hadn't. Justice, though slow, was already beginning to stir. After the war, as the full extent of Nazi atrocities came to light, the Allied powers and newly formed national governments began the arduous task of holding perpetrators accountable. In Poland, where some of the most horrific crimes had been committed, special tribunals were established to try former concentration camp personnel. The Stutthof trials, held in Gdańsk, were among the most significant. They aimed not only to punish the guilty but also to provide a public forum for survivor testimonies, ensuring that the truth of the camps would be heard and recorded. Ava Paradies was captured, identified by survivors who had endured her cruelty, and brought to trial as one of 16 defendants charged with crimes against humanity. The courtroom became a crucible of memory, where the harrowing experiences of the victims confronted the cold indifference of their tormentors. Paradies, like many of her co-defendants, showed little remorse, often denying the charges or claiming she was merely following orders. Her defense was weak, crumbling under the weight of overwhelming eyewitness accounts. The evidence against her was damning. Survivors recounted her beatings, her selections, her sadistic pleasure in their suffering. The court heard how she had personally overseen the deaths of countless women through starvation, exposure, and direct violence. After weeks of testimony, the tribunal delivered its verdict: guilty. Ava Paradies was sentenced to death by hanging. The executions were to be public, a deliberate choice by the Polish authorities. It was a statement, a reckoning, a symbolic act of justice for a nation that had suffered immeasurably. On July 4, 1946, at Biskupia Gorka Hill in Gdańsk, massive gallows were erected. It was one of the last great public executions in Europe, a stark reminder of the profound moral injury inflicted by the war. The crowd came early, swelling to 20,000 people. Survivors, families of the dead, even children, pressed in against ropes and fences, waiting not for revenge, but for closure. They sought a visible manifestation of justice, a moment when the scales would finally tip, however slightly, in favor of the victims. One by one, the condemned were brought forward. The air on Biskupia Gorka Hill was thick with anticipation, a somber silence punctuated by the murmur of the crowd. Ava Paradies sat on a wooden stool in the back of a flatbed truck, her hands bound. A noose was placed around her neck. This was not the swift, clean drop of modern gallows. This was the short drop method, a deliberate, prolonged form of execution designed to ensure a slow, agonizing death by strangulation. The truck began to roll forward. Slowly, the rope tightened. She dangled, twisted, gasped. It took minutes for her to die, her body convulsing, in the final throes of life. Beside her, another woman swayed, Jenny Wanda Barkman, equally young, equally feared, who had also been a guard at Stutthof. 10 more followed them that day, a grim procession of those who had wielded absolute power and now faced its ultimate consequence. And then it was over. The crowd, silent for so long, began to disperse, leaving behind the stark gallows and the lingering echoes of a dark chapter. Ava Paradies was just 25 years old when she died, the same age as many of the women she tormented, the same age as countless young people whose lives were extinguished by the very system she served. Her story is not one of sympathy, but of warning. It is a chilling illustration of Hannah Arendt's concept of the banality of evil, the idea that horrific acts can be committed not by monsters, but by seemingly ordinary individuals who simply fail to think, to empathize, or to resist authority. Evil does not always come wearing jackboots and medals. Sometimes it comes with a smile, with soft skin, with the ordinary face of someone who once wanted to be a nurse, or a teacher, or a mother. Stutthof was a place built on obedience, sustained by cruelty, and remembered through stories like Ava's, not to glorify them, but to understand the terrifying ease with which humanity can surrender to ideology and indifference. The public execution at Gdańsk was a stark, visceral reminder that accountability, however belated, is essential. Because if we do not remember these stories, if we do not confront the uncomfortable truths they reveal about human nature and societal vulnerability, we risk repeating the darkest chapters of our history. The lessons of Stutthof and the fate of those like Ava Paradies serve as a perpetual warning. Vigilance against hatred, empathy for the vulnerable, and an unwavering commitment to justice are not merely ideals, but necessities for the survival of civilization. Over 65,000 people perished at Stutthof. The crimes committed there remain a chilling reminder of what happens when humanity surrenders to ideology and indifference. This was history unburied. If this story moved you, if it ignited a desire to understand the past more deeply, we urge you to engage further. Visit historical sites, read survivor testimonies, and support institutions dedicated to Holocaust education. Subscribe to our channel for more untold stories, and share this video to ensure these vital lessons are never lost. Let us remember, so that we may never forget.